Hey everyone, morning. Helen here from Broken Systems. How you going? It's a bit chilly this morning. As promised, today we're going to talk about families living in cars. This has become something of a new trend. I think probably since COVID, but it has got worse since COVID, and since we've had this crisis of the cost of living and that period over the last couple of years where rents have just gone out of control. So it has forced a lot of people that are actually working. Some of them are working, some of them have jobs, kids, some of them don't have kids, but they're being forced to actually live in the only asset that they have left, and for a lot of people that's their car. I guess, one could say that it's probably better than living on the streets, but is it really? I mean, like, if I had a preference of living on the street by myself or having my children in a car, I guess I'd take living on the streets by myself. So it is a very traumatic, and I can't stress enough, traumatic experience for people living in a car, regardless of whether they're a family, regardless if they're a single father or a single mother. It's very stressful because it's hard enough not being able to have anything, but being in that situation where you still have to function, and I think that's the big thing. You still have to function. Like if you work, you still have to work. You still have to get your kids to school. So the car is sort of becomes like a mini home. Whereas I guess for a lot of people that are living on the streets, there are people that are working, and they're in the same boat, as opposed to those that are homeless that don't actually hold down full-time employment. The stress isn't as much because, how do you do that? Showers become more important. They become necessary every day. Hygiene becomes more of a necessity every day. So we do these things because we have to. We're not because we want to. And for a parent to be in a situation where they don't have a house and that they're living in their car with their children blows my mind, because it just comes with so many other facets about homelessness. It just doesn't sort of like stay in, I don't have a house to live in. It branches out to, I have to work, I have to get the children to school, children have to do homework. I have to make sure that I have showers. I have to make sure that I drive around and have a place that's safe to stay, but I've got to stay within the grounds of children's schools. And the children themselves just suffer because the contact with family and friends diminishes because there's that stigma to it, which is just crap. There shouldn't be a stigma to it, there should be a respect. I got so much respect for somebody that's had to move out of a house and is living in a car and making sure their children and their family are safe. So much respect for people like that. But so it just doesn't become a mental health issue because we don't have a house. It basically becomes a survival issue for a family. Children are hard enough, and we all know that children are hard enough to bring up and keep safe and keep grounded and keep occupied and everything like that. And living in a car, just opens a whole other lot of boundaries, and a lot of the times, these people haven't had time to get a lot of their stuff out. So, the children have lost a lot of stuff. Otherwise, stuff's in storage. So, how do you occupy? Even down to the point of how do you stop the arguments between siblings? It all becomes mind-boggling, and it all does your head in. And yet these parents, keep it all together, well, hopefully, keep it all together. But you've got to ask these questions, don't you? Where's their breaking point? Where does it break? Does it break? you know, I just sort of think about living in a car with young kids, and I sort of like, you know, like, is it something that I can do, you know? So, you know, the truth is that the change is needed, you know? And again, we get to this point where who's most important? Who do you pick out of all of this range of people that are homeless and living in different structures and living in different ways and have different responsibilities, and you know, whether you're a single person or whether you're a single mum looking after 2 kids or whether you're a family of 5 living in a car, you know, like, and the answer is they're all important, but our society doesn't allow that answer. Our society makes us make a choice of who goes in. A 55-year-old, like Jay the other day, in need of a house, or a family of 2 with 3 little kids. Mate, the pain's the same. And yet the system is built so that we have to make choices, and we shouldn't have to make choices because it shouldn't be happening. You know, so I've got to feel, you know, if you've got a driveway and you know people living in a car, for God's sake, let them park in your driveway. You know, if somebody's in their car and they need somewhere to park, come down and park here down at the Haven. Come and see me. You know, because, you know, it's not just safe, it's being a part of the community, which it sort of makes a line. We make the line, should I say. It shouldn't make a line. You know, people living in cars that are homeless, you know, should not be disregarded from the community. Their actions, their person, their community strength is the same. The only thing they don't have is a house. And I think this is, you know, as we go through the series, you know, I can't help but think, but all the problems that we're hearing with homeless, and regardless of where you're homeless, you know, all barrel down to the one thing, you know, people are stereotyping because you don't have a home. You know, so it has to be so important that we don't use that stereotype. You know, years ago, I remember years ago, you know, like if you lived in Housing Commission, you were sort of looked down on. You know, why? A house is a house. It don't matter who you pay rent to or who your mortgage is to. You know, just because you have a house with a mortgage and you pay Westpac doesn't make you better than somebody that pays at the Commonwealth Bank. Somebody that pays rent to a real estate down the road or pays rent to the Department of Housing, it's no different. We make those stereotypes. We, the community, make those stereotypes and that divide. And we've got to conquer that. We've got to look at that, and we've got to say, you know, why? Why is someone living in their car? Why do we look at them different than when they were my next door neighbour? You know, because it's not wrong. You know, it's, you know, the system is wrong because it can't provide for its people, its citizens. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, we have to look at it too and then ask ourselves, what can we do? And we've got to stop continuing that divide. We have to allow these people to be a part of our community as if they were. Because I don't think, and I don't remember ever anyone saying to me that you are a community person providing that you live in a house or you have a roof over your head. I don't think that's ever been a thing. But we're making it a thing. And we've got to stop, you know, because I can't imagine. As I said, I'm humbled that there are people out there that are doing it for their families because they have no other alternative. And the alternatives for them just aren't right. And we know what alternatives we're talking about because people do have a breaking point. And people have come over that breaking point, sadly. And, you know, people have been hurt or, you know, have died. And we have to look at this and we have to ask ourselves, you know, do we want to be a part of that broken system? Or do we want to be a community that looks after everybody, regardless of creed, colour, religion. Who cares? When I look at a person, I'll see a person. That's it. I don't see anything else. Because it really doesn't matter. And I take that person how they treat me. Now, if I end up not liking them, it's because they've done something to me personally. But it's not because they don't live in a house. And we need to think about that, guys. Okay? Because change comes with community, truth, and respect. And if we have a broken system within our government, and we have the power to change it in our hearts and with us, then we need to do that, because we can't be a part of that broken system. So that's all from me from today. Again, comment, challenge, put your comments up there. Be good to hear if you are in that situation. You know, I'd love to hear from you. So Friday, we'll be talking about young people escaping violence. Big thing, big conversations, heavy to talk about, but it's something that, you know, people need to hear, and it's conversations that we need to have. And it's having these conversations that we're doing that are opening up our minds and opening up our ideas, and listening to other people's views on it. You know, there's nothing better than a good brainstorm to come to a reality. And I think that's what we need to come from. But anyway, as from today, that is it. Yeah, just remember, a government's broken system doesn't have to be a community's broken system. See you on Friday.